found it, and by the time you found it, it didn't work. So next thing you know, yeah, you're doing the podcast over your cell phone. We have got the football in focus from the very good location here, teed up indoors on Battleground, the home of Davis Troxler, Davis's golf team. Great golf people here at Teed Up Indoors. Eddie's also here. Eddie Short. Talked to Eddie earlier a little bit. We're going to talk to Bryant Roche right now from the News and Record. Talk about last week, this week, and next week, and all the weeks coming up. It's not been time for the week right now. It's time for the strong. Did a nice piece on Tanner Ballou in the paper maybe yesterday or the day before about the all-time leader now in yardage for career in Guilford County, 84 touchdown passes, 7,000 plus yardage for his career. I mean, quietly, he went out and got the job done, and all of a sudden you look up and start studying the numbers. There he is, the all-time leader.
Yeah, it kind of snuck up a little bit, but I remember looking at the numbers, and I remember kind of a random glance at the record book. It just kind of took a peek at it, and I was like, oh, well, he's kind of getting close to this thing. And then I kind of knew when the playoffs rolled around that he had, I decided to make sure those numbers were updated. And from there, I mean, really, as soon as they came out, realized his number was higher than the previous. And
Will Jones.
Tanner Ballou, just an accomplished quarterback at Northwest Guilford, and really no one has anything but good things to say about that kid.
Yeah, and he didn't play his freshman year on the varsity. He played his sophomore year, put up some pretty good numbers sophomore year, and then on his junior year, and then now the senior year. He wished he could have lived a little bit longer. They got knocked out in the first round, but had a good career, 84 touchdown passes. That's not bad at all. The 7,000 plus yardage, past Will Jones, who we talked about some before, a little bit about Will Jones out of Page. He took, I think he led Page to 2 state championship games. So they didn't win either one of those, but he was the quarterback on one against Mallard Creek, I think was. The other one,
15 and 16, back to back,
Yep, and he ran some pretty tough competition then. And then you came back with another good piece today or yesterday. You came right, I think it's today, actually, in today's News and Record, Thursday edition, online also, on Andrew Atmore chasing the season. It's kind of interesting to have both these guys attacking the career record, season record, almost at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I've gone through that record book a lot lately, and it just kind of happened this week. Going from a career mark to a single season mark, and really through my research, Andrew Atmore, I actually had a really fun conversation with Wayne Jones.
Coach Jones out in Georgia now. You talked to him in Georgia?
Talked to him over the phone.
He's a good man. Good man.
We talked for a good bit. Of course, though, many of you know that this is my first year in the area, so it was nice to get a little what's the right word? A nice little throwback, little talk about Drew Adams, who, the current record holder for Guilford County, threw for 3,300 yards his senior season in 2010 at High Point Central. And really talking to people, a lot of people didn't know about it. Being honest, I found it, and I talked to some people that are usually in the know, and it was kind of a secret that he held the record.
And the weird thing is, you got guys like Drew Adams in the conversation. The one thing about him, you got guys like Will Jones. Well, Will Jones, I didn't think he'd be up there. And then the guys like Todd Ellis, Mike Elkins, and others they thought might have been around those. And Rusty LaRue, who was there for a while, those numbers, those guys aren't the tops. You got some other guys who are more current. I guess you got to say Drew Adams is still fairly current, and Will Jones definitely current with these guys. But the older guys in the past, they're not there, but these guys are. And like you say, Coach Jones, just a great guy. You talk to Coach Jones, just down-to-earth, genuine good talk.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed talking with him, and we had some Georgia roots, as you know. So I had talked to him for a good bit. He's coaching now at Tucker, which is kind of sort of Atlanta-ish area. And I'm pretty familiar with the area, having for a time covered football in Northeast Georgia, not too far away from there, and there were a bunch of teams that he was pretty familiar with that I've covered, and also, as you know, worked in Valdosta for a bit, so pretty well versed in terms of that state.
A lot of good names down there now. You got Coach Wayne Jones is there. You used to have Chuck Oller, not Chick, but Chuck was there back in the day, so we know all those names from down in Georgia, Valdosta State. Remember some of those names. But, Coach Jones coached Drew Adams. He had Jason Johnson came after Drew. I tell you what, Jason Johnson nearly surpassed what Drew did. I mean, Jason went on to play also just like Others did. Went to Winston State, played there for a while, quarterback, but he was going to be passing Drew's numbers, didn't quite get to his numbers, but gosh, they had some talent back at Central in that day, and plus they had another guy, you know, they had several good players over the years, very good players.
Yeah, another interesting
connection. The other guy, the Jermaine Pratt guy, with Coach Jones, Coach Jermaine Pratt, who's now in the NFL with the Bengals. He coached Pratt, and Pratt went to State. Pratt is among the he might make all pro this year. He's the leading tackler on the team of the Bengals, but I mean, Pratt was there. I mean, Coach Jones had some good talent through those days.
Oh, yeah, I love talking to the guy. He actually... So another connection, you also probably know that I was in the state of Arkansas for a time. And if you're in the state of Arkansas, I'd be pressed to tell you that probably one of the most famous coaches from the state is a guy by the name of Gus Malzahn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Wayne Jones was telling me that during that 2010 year, in the middle of the season, he started reading a book about Gus Malzahn and how he used that no-huddle offense, and he was using it at Springdale, which one of the greatest teams in Arkansas history, had a quarterback named Mitch Mustaine, who was at the time one of the top recruits in the nation. But anyway, he was telling me he read that book, and he said, man, I wish I read that book sooner because we would have put it in faster.
Quicker, yeah.
But anyway.
You want to really get rolling with Coach Jones, though. Hook up with him sometime and talk about some track and field. I mean, he'll talk you 2 hours in that because he's big into track and field, big running coach, too.
Okay, I didn't get into that with him, but maybe next time.
Yeah, he's the man when it comes to track and field. And Coach Norris, who's at Mendenhall now, used to coach at Andrews, baseball coach, and he and Coach Jones were together at High Point years ago. They both those guys, all those guys on the charts. So we got Andrew Atmore in today's news and record. Had Tanner earlier this week. Got those guys going for the records. Tanner's got the record. Drew should get the record probably tomorrow night if things stay true to form.
I would think so. He's only 132 yards behind what Adams is. So just, I mean, unless something crazy happens, you would think that he would, you know, be the new record holder, you know, after Friday.
Yeah, I wrote this down on my paper.
Friday night, whenever it happens, I guess.
Throw it in there for the family here. Anyway, Andrew Atmore Sr. and Jeff Ballou, the fathers of those two kids, very proud of their sons, what they're doing, because they've really been close to those kids and those careers. I know the fathers have tracked them close, and happy to see these numbers going the kids' way. Grimsley traveled at home tomorrow night against Cornelius Hough, 11-1. Hough lost to Burns, South Carolina. They defeated Dutch Fork and Tom Knott's team from South Carolina. Howes the kicker for Hough. He's tough, has his stuff. You wonder about this guy. Is he enough to beat? He can't beat Grimsley by himself, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously with a kicker, you got to put the guy in position. But what I will say is this. His position is much better than a whole lot of kickers you see. He has made a 53-yarder this year, and actually he broke the national record for career field goals, for those wondering. And so this guy, he's committed to Clemson, big leg. So in a tight one, that could be a factor. The biggest things for Hough is this. Can they control the pace? They like to run a lot of screen passes, a lot of quick stuff. You've got to, you know, mix that up a little bit. Can they do that effectively against that really good Grimsley DB group? You'll read a little bit more about them in tomorrow's news and record. You know, can they do that enough? And also, can they move the ball downfield? Because I don't think they'll just be able – you can never just rely on one thing against Grimsley. So I think that's something to watch.
Yeah, and by Hauser, too, as far as Grimsley, getting some good kickoff return field position on those. He's 54-63 on touchbacks this year, too. So he's got the kickoffs, he's got the punts, 39.8 yards per average, got the field goals and the PATs, but he's got to be there in position to do those things. And Grimsley takes that away from Hough tomorrow night, then he's not a factor in the game.
Yeah, that's, I mean, if the field position battle, the closer the game gets, the more that field position plays a role. And also, potentially, the more that Grimsley's run game plays a role. Because last week, Sun Valley, their game plan was basically, let's try to eliminate the big play pass. But the problem was that offensive line and Mitchell Summer. And so it's a little bit of a pick your poison with Grimsley. And I think for Hough, it's kind of, well, which poison do you pick? And a bright side for them, they do have an outside linebacker committed to Oklahoma who's supposedly pretty dang good.
Coming to Charlotte, get Oklahoma guy. Coming to Cornelius to get him. What about Dudley facing 12-0 J.M. Robinson, team from Concord, got a back-and-forth kind of team against Northwest. They were actually, game was 17-13 Northwest Cabarrus going to the fourth quarter. They were down going to the fourth quarter last week was this Robinson team. So they were trailing, and that's the only team they played this season that has a winning record. But they got guys with numbers like this Isaac Lee, 2,362 passing, 28 TDs, 5 interceptions, 135, 196, 68% passes completed. Picked off twice last week. I thought that he was picked off with the 5 picks. 2 of those came in the game last week. So it's interesting against tougher competition how he stacks up. But he's got a ton of yardage, the quarterback does.
Yeah, I guess you kind of alluded to it a little bit. They've beaten Northwest Cabarrus twice actually in the last 4 weeks. Just because of the, playing them late in the season and then in the playoff again after that. Sorry about it, excuse me. So they've actually beaten a 10-win team twice. So in a way, you kind of think, well, they could be more battle-tested in Dudley.
Right.
But Dudley has also blown everybody out, so maybe it's just a matter of, maybe Dudley, maybe it's something you don't worry about. Maybe Dudley will win big again, but it's just maybe a little small thing to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah, and you take it too, maybe kind of like we talk about the old radio shows, the old TV shows, like the old TV shows to tell the truth. Well, the real top team, please stand up. And in between those two guys, who will beat them tomorrow night? But they've got a wide receiver, this guy, Brian Rowe, caught 37 balls, 894 yards, 14 TDs. The Burnett guy, 46 catches, 755, 8 TDs. So they've got some good receivers. Dudley's got maybe 3 or 4. These guys have at least a couple real good ones too.
Yeah, I mean, Dudley's got playmakers everywhere. I know you've mentioned them on the program before. Nasir Newkirk, C.J. Neely, a really good running game also. And it's a thing where you have to account for their zone rushing attack, because if they do run the ball, they can run the ball all day. They do have the offensive linemen to where if they want to make it a run game, they can make it a run game. But, of course, the way they pass the ball with Atmore, I think that's what people think of a lot. But their zone rushing attack is really run effectively into a T.
And you stack that offensive line of Dudley up there, too. That gives plenty of time for Atmore, for the most part, to pick out his receivers. He's got time to throw. He goes to empty backfield. He's still got time to throw. But like you mentioned, 1 week, I think 3 weeks ago against Eastern, it was Nasir Newkirk. Then later on it was Neely last week, then or Neely the week before. Then last week it was Bartley. So every week it's a different guy. And this week
it can be.
Yeah,
yeah, it can be. There's a bunch of different guys that they have that can be a factor. So yeah, that's an interesting to see. Who is it that's going to shine, and also, what is the game plan for Robinson? What is it that they will try to take away, and at least attempt, because no one has been able to actually, stop the Dudley offense this year. So we'll see what happens, but
tell you what, it's all about, like we said before, enough time to throw the ball for Atmore the second. He's got time to throw. He picked those guys out, and those guys, there's a lot of openings out there too. I see those guys sometimes. Those receivers are just wide open out there. As soon as they catch it, I mean, this KD bar to the door, they're off to the races, and they're flying.
And don't forget that zone rushing attack, in addition to that zone rush, they have an RPO off of that. So for the defensive linemen, for the linebackers, if you get caught zeroing in on the zone rush, because what happens is you see those offensive linemen moving at an angle, and when you try to chase and make sure that you're still in front of those offensive linemen, Atmore takes it, he pulls it back this time, and he throws it over your head. So you have to kind of, so that makes him difficult to stop.
He's a dart thrower too. He throws a dart. It's a hard throw. It's coming at you pretty quick. You got to be ready for it. And those guys from Dudley seem to like the way that ball comes in, and they catch it well.
Good enough.
The other guy we're talking about too from Robinson's a running back. That guy they've got in the ledge right. 2,077 yards, 31 TDs, 232 carries. He's getting the ball a lot and a lot of yards to go with it. So, I mean, Dudley, who you going to focus on? I think I'll take a look at that guy.
I did notice that, a pretty prolific rushing game for Robinson. And maybe for them it's not so much stopping Dudley, but can we control the clock? Can we move the chains a little bit? And let's not play, behind the sticks. If they can keep moving it, maybe they can at least limit the number of possessions, because Dudley, you get the feeling that they're going to have theirs. I think for Robinson, you just kind of pray that you limit the possessions.
Yeah, the past two teams that Dudley has played have both looked at the let's go ahead and try to run that ball control offense. But the team last week, they're playing Central Davidson, was playing that 1940s Notre Dame scrum. No wide receivers, everybody in the quarterback's under the center. Looks like he's 5'6". He was 5'6", and the center is like 6'5", 320. So you may see the quarterback from Central Davidson maybe once every 3 or 4 plays when he pops his head out, but most of the time they're just pushing that ball in a big pile up the field. It's going to be different this week, though. I think this team is more wide open. J.M. Robinson going to go back to the old style, or the newer style. We call it the new style today, of the fast pace, the kind of more the run and shoot, the wide open offense. The spread, they call it the spread offense. Put the spread on the bread, the spread offense. You got that.
Oh, yeah. No, an interesting conversation I had with Jones, Wayne Jones, we were talking about earlier, was about how back then you had some teams that were running spread, but now it's like almost every team is running spread.
Right.
It's more uncommon for a team that does not run a no-huddle spread, even though back then you maybe only had a few teams that were doing it.
Well, we've got some other games going on too. Big ones tonight in town. Got the Grimsley hosting Hough. Got Dudley as well at home. Going to be hosting and bring J.M. Robinson. So if anyone wants to see a game tomorrow night in Greensboro, you got 2 good choices to go check out. You've also got a couple of games I wrote down. Mount Tabor, 8-4 at Butler, 11-1. Big game there down at Butler. Matthews, kind of near Charlotte, and then Brevard at Reedsville. Southeast Alamance at Clinton. That's going to be a tough one for them. They've won 2 big ones already. Terry Sanford at Southern Alamance. Southern Alamance keeps winning without Coach Fritz. He's been barred from coaching, but he's still watching his team win from somewhere. But again, what about that Mount Tabor Butler? Is Mount Tabor the team, the Cinderella story so far in the playoffs? They're going to keep moving on tomorrow night, go down to Butler, knock them off, and stay around maybe?
I tell you what, the turnaround from Tabor, I've covered them a couple times this year, and you see the difference between kind of an early wave that they had, then kind of a downtime in the middle there, and I think they kind of had to look at themselves in the mirror a little bit, had to correct some things, but over the last several games, they've run the ball really effectively. They've limited penalties, which was a bit of a problem for them at times earlier in the year. They also got a couple guys back from injuries that I think has helped themselves defensively. And last week, you go on the road, play a team in Mooresville, number 3 seed, who was undefeated. You go on the road there, and they pulled off a gritty 19-14 win. Jadon Blair with a late interception over the middle. And for those that maybe are in the Greensboro area that don't watch the Winston teams as much, Jadon Blair, a 4-star rangy safety, who, if you don't know the name, he's a pretty big-time player.
Tell you what, if we could take maybe like East Forsyth, West Forsyth, and Mount Tabor, and maybe some couple Reagan guys, put together an all-star team from Forsyth County and take Dudley and Grimsley, put them together. We talk about the Dudley versus Grimsley. We want to see that game sometime, Dudley versus Grimsley. Everybody wants to see that game, but get our guys from Grimsley and Dudley against their guys. They're all-stars, have an all-star game. We can have some fun time between these 2 counties, a county battle going on. I'd love to see that with all that talent they got between the 2.
Yeah, that would be a fun one. I don't know. Maybe one day they could arrange something. Maybe they can call it the Durham Bowl. I don't know.
Durham Bowl or the Durham Bull. And so the Durham Bowl, call it the Durham Bull. And a lot of bull out here for sure. But we could do that. I always thought do something like that for like name, image, and likeness. Do it as a fundraiser. And the guys doing it even like a 7-on-7. Go at it, what the heck?
I guess you can do that with name, image, and likeness now. I don't know the parameters for that.
They call their own shots pretty much. They have to go through the school.
As long as the coaches and schools don't fund it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Those are overly involved in state association. This is non-affiliated, and they do it after the season's over. If they were all seniors, season's over, they can pull that off. So what do you think about those two as we kind of wrap it up with Bryant Roche? I always like to call him John Roche because John Roche was my basketball man from South Carolina. But Mr. Roche with us. The Grimsley Hough game, how do you call it? And the Dudley Robinson game, J.M. Robinson game, how do you call those games?
In terms of, do I think it'll be close or not, or is that what you're coming?
Close or not, who wins, and all that good stuff.
It's hard for me to pick against either of the local teams the way they've been rolling. But what I will say is this. I think that these games could be the biggest test for either team this year, which I don't think is too crazy to think given, it's playoff time, it's deep in the playoffs. But I really think that this year, these will be the biggest tests for both teams to this point. We do know that last year Hough played Grimsley to a triple overtime affair, and I've talked to some people that are kind of around the Grimsley program, and you really get the impression that they think this game will definitely be a test for the first time they've really had all year.
Yeah. You think about it, they talk about guys in ball games. I want to spy. They need a spy on a certain player during the game. I'd like to get a spy before the game, send that spy down. When these guys get off the bus, go down and look at them. Come back and tell us what they look like. What do these guys look like? How are they getting off the bus? What kind of demeanor do they have? What do they look like? We seen them on film. Are they for real? Send that kid down to the spy, bring back the information. Now we're ready to take these guys on. What about Mr. Dad? Is he on his way? Have you heard?
From what I gather, he should be on the program. We'll see what happens, but
just save him a slot, right?
He likes to talk a little fantasy, he likes to talk a little baseball, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that, Mr. Durham.
Excellent job as always.
Oh man, thank you for having me on as always.
We're going to get you on again. If we see it one of the games sometime later on, in one of the football games or one of the basketball games, we'll bring you on at halftime during the broadcast to get some information from you, get you to break that down also.
Look forward to basketball season. It's just kind of started, and looking forward to really go full throttle when it does.
It's on its way. And also on the way too, Football in Focus from the Teed Up Indoors on Battleground, coming back.